We talked about Alex Smith earlier in the show, and we weren't clear where he stood with the Washington Redskins. We knew that his personal doctors cleared him for return to football activities. He could go snowboarding, he could go skiing. His personal doctors said his bone was good to go, and he was healed up, and with the bone and the rod, he could come back to the football field. But we didn't know what was going to happen when he met with Redskins doctors. Tweet from J.P. Finley maybe gives us a little more clarity. Ron Rivera was speaking to the media, and he says that both Alex Smith and Reuben Foster need to show football movement before they get cleared. Neither player has passed the football portion of their physical. So the way that sounds to me is it's just an incomplete physical. So maybe, they looked at the CT scans and they looked at the x-rays, which is what Alex Smith's doctors had done, and maybe they concur, but they need to see how he moves on the football field.
I don't think they're in any rush to get him back on a football field in a full scrimmage or playing capacity. I think that Ron Rivera would love to, A, reduce his salary for 2020 to lessen the cap hit, and they would love to have him mentor Dwayne Haskins. I don't think Ron Rivera is entertaining the possibility of Alex Smith being ready to play in 2020. I just don't think that's going to happen.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think he loves him there as a mentor and a guy who's going to, show Dwayne Haskins, the way to become a professional. I think that has rubbed off on Haskins from what you've seen from him this offseason. But I think it's a pipe dream to think that Alex Smith would compete for the starting job and or play in 2020.
Finley just asked what happens if Alex Smith passes the physical. Now, this you can say is a nebulous response, but he says then he becomes part of the equation. That's what Rivera said.
Right.
But that's kind of a general answer. Part of the equation, he's part of the equation, but doesn't mean he's going to be part of what we do going forward. They could ask him to take a severe salary cut. He might not be willing to do that. They could cut him, trade him. I mean, anything can happen. But those are two different tests, drastically different tests. For a team of doctors just to look at the bone and say, yeah, it's healed, is a totally different test than going out, dropping back, throwing 20-yard outs, scrambling around the field, running away from fast linebackers. That's a totally different test.
True, but my guess is Alex, I have no idea what the football coach is going to say, but I'm guessing that Alex feels confident that he can pass all of those things.
Yeah, maybe.
We saw the video, and it did look like he had a hitch in his giddy-up, but we saw the video on E60, I don't know, it seems like a couple of months ago now, and he definitely looked like he was limping around, but you could also say he actually was moving fairly well. You know what I mean? And if he continued the improvement, one would assume that he looks better now than he did a couple months ago or whenever that was filmed.
Yeah. No, that's true. I'm surprised that he was cleared at all by anybody.
And I would guess also that the threshold for being cleared for NFL action is different than your personal doctor just clearing you for going snowboarding or whatever, resuming most physical activities.
Of course.
True, but what if he's adept at dropping back, like the footwork drills that they do, all the little, shuffle movements of the feet, and, he can run a 40. He can do all of those things, Cakes.
Yeah, but stepping up into a pocket when there's a lot of traffic around and you got guys stepping on each other's legs and ankles.
But again, I'm willing to wager that he will not be activated to like the full roster for the entire 2020 season.
And I would say, by the way, Jason, this is what I would argue. I'd argue he's probably the best at stepping up in the pocket, just based on experience.
I'm just saying things happen in there. I mean, it's unpredictable. And mentally, he may be thinking about that injury every time he drops back. I would. You would.
Listen, again, we've talked about this several times throughout this show. He has, take away the infection, right? That's one part of the equation. He had a broken leg. Guys come back from broken legs. They just do. If the bone has healed, and it's been like 18 months since the bone has healed, and then they've slapped together some other tissue and muscle around it to protect it, and he can do all the stuff, then I can maybe see, and believe me, it's shocking to me, but I can maybe wrap my head around how they can approve it. What almost killed him wasn't the broken bone. It wasn't something that happened. It was an infection, and they had to clear out the infection, and it was grotesque, and it's the sickest thing we've ever seen. And if he comes back, it'd be the greatest comeback I've ever seen in my lifetime. But I can kind of understand what ultimately took him out was a broken bone. That has healed.
Compound fracture.
True. And it's much harder to come back from that.
How many guys have come back fully to what they were before with
Especially
that sort of an injury?
Well, just even to come back. Let's say, I'm not even going to say he's going to come back at an elite level. You'd have to Google that. I don't know the answer. But I'm willing to bet that guys have come back after compound fractures.
I would have to guess it's rare, especially at his age, mid-30s. Compound fracture.
You're putting all these caveats on it.
Medicine is so much better. Like, do you remember just a few years ago, Paul George had a horrific leg injury, and then he's come back and he's become one of the best players in the NBA once again. It was a terrible. I don't know if it was a compound fracture, but he had a terrible injury to his leg.
I'm just saying it's rare
to look at.
It's rare.
I think it's tough to come back. Theismann never did.
But
that was 40 years ago.
I'm looking at it now. The bacteria makes everything different, but Paul George open tibia fracture.
That's a great one. That's happened to a couple basketball guys.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've been able to come back.
He's come back, and
he's not taking hits
different.
directly on
it's
it.
Totally different sport.
True.
Now he is cutting on it, true, but he's not taking hits on it.
He's not.
But you see that he's physically able to dunk. He's jumping. It's not like
he's
Paul
a freak.
George, he's not a shell of his former self. Like it's this.
No,
medicine is so much better. It's not like when Dominique Wilkins was at the end of his career and he came back after I think tearing his Achilles.
Yeah.
He looked like a different Dominique Wilkins. Okay, he was shooting jumpers all the time. He could still score because he's one of the greatest scorers in the history of the game. But he wasn't the human highlight film anymore. But nowadays, we haven't seen it yet, but what we're hearing about John Wall, what we're hearing about Kevin Durant is these guys, different injury, torn Achilles, that these guys are going to come back and you're not even going to be able to tell that they suffered this horrific injury because in the past, something like a torn Achilles would make you come back as a shell of your former self. So all I'm saying is if the guy could run a 40 right now, like I don't know what tests they would do to test his physical ability on the football field. But let's just say it was running a 40, a shuttle run, some of the things they do at the combine, and he was able to do all of that. I don't think you can hold him back. Like I said this again yesterday, and I said this today. Personally, I'm just afraid of the worst for him. But if he can pass all of that stuff, Ron Rivera has to make him part of the equation.
He has to evaluate where he is on a skill level at that point.
And by the way, just to a little tangent related to this, because we haven't talked about him much of all, and we haven't included him in the equation really, apparently Bryce Love passed his physical and will be allowed to practice.
Wow.
So now that running back room is really going to be full of potential guys because you've got Geis, you've got Peterson. They drafted Antonio Gibson. They drafted Bryce Love a year before. And they've got Barber,
McKissick.
That's 6 guys right there.
Full running back room.
You're obviously not going to keep all those guys. Now, Gibson could be moved into the wide receiver depth because there's absolutely none there. So you could get, Trey Quinn could go and Gibson just sits right there in Quinn's spot. But the running backs, that's kind of surprising. Hadn't heard his name. Didn't know what was going on with him. I just think the Alex Smith, getting back to him, I just think that, passing any sort of a physical football test where you're dropping back, stepping up into pockets, getting bounced out of a pocket and have to sprint away to the sideline, all of that stuff I think will be more of a challenge.
I think that'd be extremely difficult. But if the bone is healed, they have to clear him. If the bone is healed, I think
can Alex Smith be the best quarterback on the roster after suffering that injury?
I doubt he probably. I just don't know. I don't know. I doubt he probably is.
He
hasn't played in 2 years.
If he is, then it tells you that the Haskins pick was a complete
But
waste.
Haskins is still raw. Look, here's the thing, Jason. I don't want Alex Smith to play in terms of the Redskins. I want Alex Smith to play for the personal redemption, right?
Oh, yeah. I root for him, yes. I root for him.
Right.
I think something that Eric brought up, though, earlier is interesting to kick around. If Alex Smith was 25 and not 35, we probably would be all thinking about this differently.
Definitely. His
Yeah.
age definitely comes into play.
100%.
But to me, 35. See, Cakes is always an age. To me, 35 for a quarterback.
On your 30s, and it's rare to play really well into your 40s. I mean, there aren't that many quarterbacks that do that, but
Aaron
I think
Rodgers-
a healthy 35-year-old is fine. A 35-year-old coming off of a gruesome injury, and he wasn't even playing that great when he suffered the injury. I would have major question marks
Okay, I
about him
understand
going
that.
forward.
We talked about that a lot yesterday. He's a conservative quarterback. He went a whole season without throwing a touchdown to a wide receiver, and that's just kind of in his DNA. He's very conservative. But to me, in terms of physical ability, I just looked it up. Aaron Rodgers is 36. We could go. Look, most of the guys are younger, but I mean, how old is Matt Ryan at this point? How old is Matthew Stafford?
Early 30s.
Yeah, I mean they're fine quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, but they didn't suffer a horrific leg injury.
Understood, but
Right, we
that's
don't know that
that's
Alex
the big
Smith
factor.
What
That's the
if
biggest
Alex
factor.
Smith
It's not
is-
the age.
What
It's
if
the
Alex
biggest-
Smith's only 75% of what he was when he suffered the injury?
in terms of what?
In terms of his physical,
Because I would assume you're
the
going
health
to say
of his leg.
His
If he's
arm
75%, they have to cut him.
His arm talent's going to be the same, right? You don't believe.
I mean
those-
his leg. I don't mean his arm.
Okay. So, but what if he proves to you that he can run the 40 just as fast as he did a year ago?
Impossible.
2 years ago.
I would
Impossible.
be shocked if that happened.
He's going to be able.
Why is it impossible?
He's going to run it as fast as he did before he snapped his leg in half.
Why do you find it impossible? I just brought up Paul George.
Okay, but Gordon Hayward had a horrific injury. He's not the same player. The majority of guys who suffer that injury in
Right.
any sport are not going
Right,
to be the
but-
same.
And George
I'm not arguing
and
he's gonna be the
Hayward
same,
younger,
but he is
both
back.
younger.
Yeah.
Those guys are back.
They are back, but they didn't
Yeah.
have the infections.
The infection, right, but that is a tissue issue.
And I don't.
If you looked at all three of their legs and put them all up next to each other,
Yeah.
you know which one Alex Smith is.
100%. I'm just saying I can understand how a doctor would look at that and go, well, the bone has healed, and he's got some muscle there, so, I mean, I can't say that the bone hasn't healed.
But those doctors didn't say, yeah, it's healed enough where you can go play 16 games. They didn't
they
say
actually
that.
said no restrictions.
I know, but there's
But that's
a
his
it's a
personal
different
doctor.
level.
That's not an NFL doctor.
It's a
It was actually
different
a
level.
couple of
Correct.
doctors, Cakes. It was
Yeah.
a couple.
I'm willing to wager that he
Yeah.
never takes a snap in a full practice for the Washington football team ever again. I'll wager that with anybody across the board
Okay, but
right
that
now.
might be because that's how the Washington football team's approaching it.
So what is
And
your
that may have to
what
do
is your
with salary?
But what is
We're
your
just saying
point
he
about
may be
Alex?
physically able to do it, and then this is my thing when people.
You mean for another team?
Well, maybe another team would give him a shot. I don't know. I just know that I would bet he's going to pass the physical, and he's going to pass it completely, including the football activities. Then they may decide to cut him because they don't want him in the quarterback room. They're going all in with Dwayne Haskins, whatever. But I believe that he's going to be recovered enough because I don't think Alex Smith is setting this up that all of a sudden he can't run a 40 or he can't do the
I will bet you a whopping dollar.
whatever physical tests that they do for the Redskins. I'm sure he has been working on it of doing.
full dollar that he does not pass the Washington football team physical
Ever.
Done.
At any point this year?
at any
Done.
point in 2020.
I'll spit on it.
Can producers get in on that?
Sure, it's a dollar. But
What
I
are
don't
you
care.
thinking,
It's a
Grab? You're
small
awfully quiet
blind
over
at
there.
MGM National
Well,
Harbor.
there's a lot of flaming going on. I think he'll within a
Shocker.
month he'll be taking full practice snaps.
Really?
Yeah, 1 month.
I mean, Cakes, what do you
Okay,
need to see? Do you think Alex Smith is setting this up so that all of a sudden he can barely walk?
I don't know.
What do you need to see?
You need to see a lot.
What do you
What
need to see from Alex Smith on the football field that would convince you that he could play football?
It's just an eye test.
No, I
You
don't
can
think
tell-
Cakes. I think Cakes. There's nothing that Alex Smith could do.
Here's what I think.
To make him
I
believe
think,
he can step
I think
on
the
field.
Washington football team never expected Alex Smith
understand
to,
that,
to
Cakes.
We all
recover
agree.
to
I
this
understand that.
point.
I'm saying, what does Cakes need to see from Alex Smith? for
It
him
doesn't
to
matter what
prove-
I need to see. It's
No,
what
but
the,
I'm
it's what
asking
the
you the
doctors
question.
need to see.
I know, but I'm
It's what the
asking you the
doctors need.
question. Because
So you be the doctor. What do you need to see
Dr.
as the
Cakes?
doctor? Yeah. What do you
Yes.
need to see as the doctor?
I don't know. I don't set up
what do you
physical
need
tests for people.
What do you need
How
to
would
like?
I know that?
What do you need to be able to like jump over a?
I'm
a
going with the eye
3-foot
test.
hurdle?
My eye test tells me he's never going to take a full practice snap with the Redskins.
Right, that's just
or
because you're
the
looking
Washington
at that,
football team.
that dog-riddled leg, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. But I know it looks like a chew toy, but he's figured it out. The bone healed.
Yeah.
I just don't.
But there's a lot more that goes into it that we just don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's so simple to say the bone healed. He can do whatever he wants. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I'm not saying he could do whatever he wants. His doctor's saying it.
Right,
I'm
but
not
what if
saying
he
it.
could? What if
I'm
they're not
surprised
saying-
they said it.
What if he could?
But they haven't
run-
seen him. But they haven't seen him in a practice. They haven't. Those doctors
okay,
didn't
but-
see anything. They just
But
looked
they've
at the bone
examined him,
scans.
and they're saying, yeah, there's the bone's healed. What
Do you
can we
think he
tell
can't
you?
run,
Do you know-
Jason? Do you think he can't jump? What if he can do all those
He
things?
can,
Run, jump,
but
and
what
cut
if he can
side to
only do
side?
it? But if he can only do it at 70% of what he did before,
I
As long
just-
as he can protect himself, look, he's not going to be Cam Newton. He's not going to rush for 700 yards.
It's not
if
going
he
to be
played
Lamar
60 games.
Jackson.
Yeah, he's not going to be that. But
I just
as
can't
long
wait
as
to
he can
hear-
protect himself.
Can't wait to be right on this. I just can't wait to be right.
Good.
I'm going to be so right on this.
Just like
Then
you were right with
He's
the-
going to cut
just-
this up, and then
Just like you were right with the team name, Cakes.
hey, I was just going off Dan Snyder. He said he would never change the name. Put it
Yeah.
in caps.